Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my euphonium playing superstar co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm actually excited because as we tape this, I'm about to fly to Florida to play my first gig in a year.
Hey,
you
look at
had
you!
Your first gig in a long time.
I
Too,
did. I did. Yes. Yeah, it was good. It was an outdoor Easter gig that was with some of the best players in town, and there was no rehearsal. Basically, it was easy. It was wonderful. So yeah, it was good. Yeah, because it was outdoors. It was kind of Dave Murray, who we are going to have on the show, trombonist from the NSO. You know, he and I were just like a bunch of quartet stuff, chorales and stuff. So we had a lot of stuff in octaves, but we couldn't really hear each other. So it's just kind of like, I'm just going to play in tune with myself and we'll hope for the best. And I was like, just let you know, I can't really hear you. He's like, I can't hear you either. It's all good, man. Yeah. So we were good. So, hey, we got a new thing here. We're actually trying something new. We're going to have an outro, which we're going to. So we are going to talk to Tomas Gansch of Mnozil Brass. I'm very excited to talk to him, and which I think that's going to be great. But there's going to be an outro where you and I have a reaction to it, etc., which we usually kind of cram into the intro. So stay tuned for that afterwards. Also, I have an exciting announcement to make. The next guest on Inside the Practice Room is an event featuring Michael Sachs, the principal trumpet of the Cleveland Orchestra, right?
Cool.
Thursday, May 6th at 8 p.m. It's going to be a 1-hour deep dive into Michael Sachs's practice room. He's going to show us how he sets up his practice space, what he practices, how he's organized in terms of his overall approach to practicing. He's going to show us a little bit of practicing, and there will be a chance for some questions as well. So if you've ever wanted to really be a fly on the wall for one of the greatest brass players to ever live and to see how he approaches practicing, this is for you. And if you use the offer code Cleveland, you can get $10 off. It's only $19. If you go to hitsacademy.com, then you will see that Inside the Practice Room with Michael Sachs. So check it out.
Cool.
You know what? The last thing we got to say here is we want to thank everybody who did the survey.
Hey, 71 folks. Thank you very much for doing that.
And we have a winner whose name is Dave Topping. We said that one person who filled it out was going to get a $100 American Express gift card. And actually, well, we only went through the people that were really nice, and that was only 7 of you. So it was one of the 7. I'm just kidding. We did a random number generator on Google, and Dave's number popped up. So a number popped up, and then Lance would was like,
I can count to
Mr.
5 still.
Topping. He counted twice, so because it was 5 whole slots in. So all right, anything else, Lance?
All right.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's on Patreon. We love you guys. And without further ado, let us get to the conversation that we are about to have with Tomas Gansch. Today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by a guest who we have wanted from day one. If you want to start a podcast, here's what you should not do. You should not email someone like Tomas Gansch and say, hey, we would love for you to be on the podcast. And he's like, absolutely, I'm going to be in the States on tour. This is like a few years ago, like in a couple of weeks. Let's be in touch. And I said, absolutely. And then I messaged him 3 years later. So you should not do that. That does not make a guest feel very wanted. But Lance and I were just talking, like, you've been at the very top of the list. You do insanely creative stuff. The sounds that come out of your trumpet are frustratingly amazing, and it is an honor to have you. Mnozil Brass, Gansch and Roses, the list goes on and on. Tomas Gansch, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
and thanks for the great introduction. I don't know how to follow that. So.
It would be awesome if this was the worst episode ever.
Yeah,
like a big build up. Like,
oh yeah.
Well, no. and we know he's an interesting human. So yeah, if he just totally phoned it in, like, you ask him a question, he just says yes, And then just, yeah, those are the hardest interviews.
Do it like that comedian, the man on the moon. What was his name?
Oh,
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman, yeah.
Like, do an Andy Kaufman thing.
Get the bongo.
So, Lance, where do we start with this guy? I don't.
We should start with the story because we screwed up. We didn't realize that the daylight savings thing hit Austria today. So Thomas Herr Gansch has been waiting for an hour for this episode to start. And one of my favorite memories of being in Boston Brass was when we shared a music festival somewhere. I don't remember where it was.
Outside of Linz.
In Gemunden, I guess.
Sounds
Maybe.
right.
Yeah. At a lake. Remember anything? You remember anything?
I remember some things.
Okay.
I remember some. I remember that we were all staying in the same motel. And I remember that at breakfast, Andrew and I came down and you were there and we were talking with, who were we with?
Leonard.
With Leonard and then it was one of the trumpet players came just crashing down the stairs with all of his stuff because he didn't realize that the time had changed. And so he was.
But that sounds like Sultan. That sounds like a trombone player.
I think it could have been. Was it Zoltan?
This sounds like Sultan.
Oh, it was Zoltan. But then not only that, like, because we saw you guys. So he comes down just like in a hot panic. Like he's late. He's like held everybody up again. Like he had that look on his face like, oh, this is the last straw. They're going to like cut my toes off. And so then you.
Oh yeah, that's Sultan. Because Sultan always came last. And every day we said we're going to leave at 7:30. He'll be there at 7:33, and everybody's waiting the bus since 7:25, and really pissed off. So he was that guy, and he got that speech, from the band. You do that one more time, and you're out.
He came like Kramer from Seinfeld, blasting into the breakfast room, and you guys just nodded and. I don't remember if you even told him, I think.
He took, after a few years now, he took on the habit of like coming very smoothly, right on time, No, he never comes early, but he always walks very slowly. Also the airport, he always has that vibe around him that I'm too cool for school, man. But if things go wrong and he's late, he's going to be in a hurry.
See, now I think if memory serves as well, we saw you about a week later or 3 or 4 days later at a different thing. And I just remember asking, how did it go? And apparently that trip, was he in charge of the merch, the books and CDs and stuff?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, because whoever was in charge of the merch put a box of merch on top of the vehicle. And then you guys drove off.
This sounds like Robert. That's another.
Yeah. And it's like
this is a trumpet player.
Pull the van over, and everybody's picking up books and CDs off the side of the road.
Very, very nice.
When you're on the road long enough, you start doing stupid stuff. We almost backed over Lance's trombone once with the van because he had a big box that fit his euphonium and his trombone, and he put the main body. He leaned it up against the back, and like the van was in reverse, and then I saw out of the corner, and we almost completely flattened his trombone in very some nice. Hampton Inn parking lot. Yeah. maybe he would have played in tune after that, but
doubtful.
We'll know.
Doubtful.
And when things like that happen, you feel so stupid. It's unbelievable. Like I remember one time I wanted to look really cool, and I put my horns to my bag, and it was like by that time I had played the trumpet for like 27 years or something, and I forgot to close it, and I swung it around my back, and I watched my horns go boom in the corner of the room. Both were shredded. So fantastic.
That's pretty good. So how long has Mnozil been around?
Mnozil's been around since the fall of 92.
92.
So it's like it's 29 years this fall.
Going on 30 years. Wow.
Yeah. But it was a coincidence, and we never planned to be around that long. It just happened. And in the beginning, we were just playing pubs, actually. So the better we would entertain the audience, the more drinks we would get, and that's the business model today, still. And
It's a good model.
Yeah, it is actually. We learned how to entertain people. That's a long story, very short. Yeah.
But a really important story that,
Yes.
regardless of length, that's a high protein story. I remember,
There
and
were,
actually,
yeah,
one
there
of
were
my
there were carbohydrates as well.
I remember being we were in Schladming for a festival, and it might have been my first time in Austria. I can't quite recall, but I remember we were Andrew and I think Jose and I were coming back rather late from an establishment where we had been drinking milk, and
With Jose, how could that have
yeah.
been?
But we heard brass playing, and it was late, 2, 3 in the morning. And I remember just sort of turning a corner, and there was a group of teenagers, maybe a dozen or so teenagers, maybe more, I can't quite remember. And they were just jamming. They were just playing tunes on brass instruments, and somebody would figure out how to play a Michael Jackson tune, and then they'd play a disco tune, and they'd play, and then half of them were smoking cigarettes and dancing, and the other half were playing, and if someone got tired, they'd give their horn to somebody else. And it just struck me how interesting it was that this was just a normal, well, I don't know if it was normal, but it was a thing that teenagers would do just to entertain themselves. Is that typical, or was this like, were they just a bunch of freaks, or both?
It's probably both, but I lost track a little because when Mnozil started, I was like 16, and I came freshly to Vienna from the countryside, and I think this culture of playing without music was gone a little. Everybody tried to be very
Legit.
uptight and legit, but although nobody was, but everybody tried to pretend to be like legit. And we kind of started this wild thing again and had a big following very soon. I don't know if we really started it again, but I think we were part of it. We were part of a bigger movement somehow to resurrect the brass Oompa culture, you know, because Oompa bands, they're all the brass players in the orchestras in Austria. Nobody's from the city. They're all from the countryside. They're all from Oompa bands. And this is the cultural background we have. So we always met in the city, went to the pub and played our standards, which we all knew from our Oompa bands. And yeah, it's partying was always a big part of it. I remember in the beginning when we played with in the Mnozil pub, we played on the fridge. There was a big fridge, and we were standing on top. And there are some old tape cassettes where an old guy recorded with his Sony Professional. He recorded those Stammtische. And you can hear when you listen to that, we play like shit. It is terrible. And there's one thing where we played just a closer walk with Thee because we knew the Canadian brass thing, and we played what we knew and what we heard. So we tried to play jazz, and everybody's playing bass solos, and we are going for it. And in the end, you can hear no trumpet player can play a high note anymore. It is just terrible. It is a really, believe me, it is terrible. You cringe. It makes you cringe. That's how terrible it is. But after this last so-called chord is over, you hear like 200 people go, yeah! Well, this is a very special energy where this was born out, you know?
Yeah. Well, I just feel like there's this huge disconnect when students start playing. It's like we tell them, well, this is a serious thing, and this is work, and you've got to get better at this thing. And then they go listen to music, and it moves them in a completely different way. And it's like, whatever you do, don't use your clarinet to play music that you like, for heaven's sakes. We got to keep those separate.
Yeah, there was always that strange feel of disconnect between the world of high-end classical music, what they tell you, what they teach you, and the actual experience of making music. I always felt this was something completely different, and it only comes together very little in very few people can make real great music and be a fantastic like classical trained orchestra player or something.
Like you mentioned that you guys were all, when you were 16, you were all attempting to play jazz. Well, you're one of my favorite jazz players. So how, like, when did you decide, well, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna learn to do that?
Actually, I didn't decide anything. I saw, when I was 12 or 13, I saw Dizzy Gillespie on television, and I saw him just walk on stage. The band was playing a vamp, and he was moving his hips, and I saw him, and I knew I want to do that. And then, after some years of failing in the classical world, which everybody wanted me to go to, I decided, okay, now I'm doing what I always wanted to do. And then I started to go to sessions, and that was the solution for my problems.
It's interesting. So did you have a lot of pushback? You wanted to go in this direction. People were pushing you to go in this direction. How you just sort of persevered, or what was that process like? Like, did you have success on the classical side, or you just decided, forget it, I'm going this way?
Now, my problem was my brother, because my brother is one of the greatest classical players, orchestra players ever. He's like, for me, he's up there with Herseth and Maurice Murphy and my brother. These are my three favorite players. So everybody expected me since I was little that I would do the same. And the master plan that was laid out before I even could think for myself was like, Thomas is going to be a Vienna Philharmonic trumpeter as well. And so I had to fail, because it could have worked, but I never would have played better than him. At the highest level, I would have played just the same, because he was my role model anyway. Since I was little, I listened to him, how it sounds. I want to sound like that as well. But I'm very happy it played out like it did. I will never play as good the trumpet as he does, but otherwise I would never have become Thomas Gansch. I would have always stayed the little brother of Gansch. And now I have my own name and career and following and stuff, and I do what I like.
Well, I hate to keep saying nice things about you and complimenting you, but I use you and the band as an example in a lot. I teach a business of music class and a marketing for musicians class at my university. Beg your pardon. And I use you guys as an example of people who are innovative in that they decided who they were, and they were not. It's only possible that there's one of you and one of your band, and you didn't go try to be a different version of the Canadian Brass or the Empire Brass. You didn't go try and be a different version of your brother. Who are we? What do we care about? Let's do that thing. You created your own thing.
Yeah, somehow by stealing from everybody, So it's always easy to say you created your own thing. I take in whatever I like. I'm like a sponge, and I take what I like and I keep it in my repertoire and I mix it. I always saw the way I was, for example, when I started writing music, I always felt like I write like Tarantino makes movies. I'm like, I know a whole lot of shit and I mix it together in a new way and create some new stuff with old riffs, but it's not really that inventive, I guess. It's just playing with what is there.
Yeah, except that one of the analogies I sometimes like to use is the difference between a cook and a chef. And to be a really great cook is not easy, but that's just recreating things that other people have had. Your musical output, and it's vast and broad, is very much a chef, and it's not like a chef. There's only so many ways that you can cook a chicken breast. I mean, you know, it's not like there's like some brand new way that people are inventing on the regular to cook chicken. But it's like what you do, how you do it, what you combine, what you don't. There's unexpected twists like in a dish. And that's what I think that you do musically, is that you're a chef. So you're not inventing everything on your own, but the combinations that you come up with are remarkable, and they get me thinking and telling other people about it.
Thank you. That's a nice description. Actually, it's just improvising. I like to play around, you know. See what is here. What is here? What can we do with it? Let's play. You know, and it's always something. You know, I'm not a great soloist because I don't want to be alone. I like to be part of a team. It's just more fun to be with others and to communicate with each other and with the audience. And I was never great at like. I was never great at auditioning or something, or playing a solo concert, because I'm not great at, you push me out on stage and then I have to play perfect for 10 minutes. I will fail. But when I go on stage with Mnozil, for example, and we play like 10,000 notes, and I can mess up like 150 and still have a great show, you know, I can find my way out of that. But if you put me in an orchestra and I have to like count measures for like 10 minutes, and then I have to play, I will fuck it up probably. Because that's just too much pressure, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain, because on the other side, I play much harder stuff, and I don't think about it.
So I want to
go ahead.
We're going to talk about Mnozil a lot more, because there's a lot to unpack there for us and for the audience. But I wanted to circle back for a second to your brother Hans, who you mentioned before, who, for anybody who doesn't know, was the principal trumpeter of the Vienna Philharmonic for 14 years. What do you think? What do you think it is about him that's different than you that enables him to thrive so much in that specific scenario, where we'll take your word for it? I bet you'd be a lot better at it than you're letting on, but it's not really in your wheelhouse. Like what makes him so good at that?
He's just, he never had any problems on the horn. He was used to always do it right. He is that guy. He does it right. And it's the very, very rare case that when he plays, it moves people. Mm. It's just not playing notes. He never played only notes. And I never heard him practice like conventional stuff. I never heard him at home practice Clark or Arban on anything. He always was improvising, playing melodies, always trying to tell a story, always. Wow. And this musicality combined with his ability on the horn made him like the perfect lead player. And I heard him once play live the Alpine Symphony with Osawa back in '96 and in Vienna, and he was really going for it, and he messed up like the second thing to the D. Mm-hmm. And he almost made a shake on top like a big band player. He was going for it so hard. And in the end, when Osawa let him stand up, the audience was going berserk. They were screaming because he was going for it all the time. He was taking risks. And nowadays, when I go to listen to orchestras, most of them, they sound the same. And this special quality of being a fantastic player, but also laying everything you got into every note. Yeah, this is very, very rare.
Yeah, boy. Well, that's a perfect segue back into Mnozil, because that's the. If I had to boil it down to one thing, it's that the playing, you guys are just going for it. The storytelling, you're just going for it. It seems like both in the creation of the storytelling, which we got into a little bit with Leonard, but that was like years ago now that we interviewed him for this. but then also even just the execution of the storytelling, like in the moment. It's just like, I think that's what ends up taking my breath away the most, is that it feels like you just go for it every single time that I've ever been lucky enough to see you. And it sounds like that's just an extension of your early days when you were in the pub, which was the only way you knew how to do it.
We had a special energy in the beginning. We never took it for granted to just play a gig. We always wanted to own the audience. It was very, very important. We wanted to have that feeling when they shouted out after we really played badly, they still loved us. We always wanted them to love us. And so out of the Mnozil pub, we got hired to play at weddings or at like conventions, stuff like that. And every gig we played, we never said we play from 2 to 4 and then we go. We would always stick with like a bunch of people who would get drunk and love us. That was a very, very important thing. And it was like we started in 92, and the first time we went on a stage to play a proper concert was in 97. So everything developed very slowly. And we just always were a group that took action. So we because with brass instrument you can move. You don't need amplifiers. You are versatile, and you can do things others can't. So we would play gigs like the most legendary gig we ever played was like in 99 in Switzerland, and we played from 1 in the afternoon till 6 in the morning, and we were this was a festival, and somebody the guy who made the festival, he saw us very shortly before the festival started, and he called his board and he said, I cannot explain it to you intellectually, but you have to hire this group. And then they hired us, and we were like the Joker, we were running around and we were making music. Anyway, it took us to it. We stopped the bus on the street. We went playing through the bus, came out the other side. All the people came out with us, had a party on the spot, went to the next. It was crazy. And it all ended when Leonard, so we started at 1 in the afternoon. At around 11 or 10:30, we could put our instruments into a hall and have them locked in. So we all put our instruments in and went to have a drink. And 1 minute after 11, Leonard came back from the hall with all our instruments. He carried all the instruments and said, let's go, let's carry on. And then we played till 6 in the morning. It was fantastic.
Wow.
So it is always the will to make something special, And
do you remember the things that caused you to, okay, we need to do that? That was a thing that was successful. Not a piece of music, but what you're reading. I guess the other advantage, I'll get to a question here, I promise. You do everything by memory, which means then you're able to visually communicate with the audience and kind of read the audience in the way that I think a stand-up comic does. Just to sort of sense what you're getting back from the audience and how to proceed. Were you all good at that? Were some of you you would say, oh, do this, or did you all just sort of instinctively?
No, everybody is different. Everybody can do things that the others can't, and some are better at it, some are not that good. But actually what changed the game for us was when we started to work with an actor back in 2000. He had seen us, and in those days we would have a stage show where 7 people would do 7 jokes at the same time all the time. So it was like a high testosterone, alcohol-fueled brass party on stage. And it was a success, We played quite a lot. By the way, during that time in 98, we were going on stage in a pub in Bavaria, like a really old pub, and there were maybe 200 people, I don't know. And we played the first tune, like a march music, and there's a guy in the first row, And I play, and when I have a break, I go to Leonard and I say, man, look, this guy, he looks like Bobby Shue. And Leonard is like, oh yeah, he looks like Bobby Shue, but it can't be Bobby Shue. And it was Bobby Shue, who was playing like in Bavaria. And somehow he found out that we were playing and he had heard of us. And then he used to come regularly to some of our gigs.
Wow.
Whenever he came over, he was asking, when is Mnozil playing? And then he drove out with us. So, however, so when we worked with this actor, the actor helped us putting together a stage persona. Like he said, okay, now you make a break, This is good, this is bad. There's too much. He narrowed it down and he brought some of his thoughts in. And his name is Bernd Jeschek. We did 5 shows or something together with him. And then we started also working with other people. But he helped us to find the way of working on a show that we kept doing till today.
Mm-hmm. How do you advise young players or musicians coming up not to do what you did, but to find their own thing?
It's complicated. I mean, it's not complicated. It's not. I always tell them to tell a story. When you play, never play meaningless notes. Always tell a story. Have something to tell. If you have nothing to tell, who should listen to you? Yeah, you should. I see just too many people that go on and they play and they don't put any thought or heart into it, and it's not enough.
Amen.
Yeah, that's it. If you want the people come and pay money to listen to you, you better serve something. You better have something that you can pull out of your hat. If you're just going in to play the Houghton for the 2 millionth time, who should be interested in that? Unless you do it like Gould and like shoot the piano player.
Somebody that Lance and I both look up to, not a musician. His name is Seth Godin, and he always he says, if you stopped making your art tomorrow, who would miss it? That's what, like, his kind of like very harsh like way, and he admits it's a harsh way to look at it. And if you just play the Houghton really well, like, how many people are really going to miss it? But I will tell you that whenever I am working with a class on entrepreneurship or with consulting clients, Mnozil brass is always one of, if not the first example I give. And that's because if you all announced today on Facebook that you had like 1 gig in 2 weeks in Vienna and that you were hanging it up, there would be a small part of the world, because most people have never heard of you, have never heard of Bobby Shue, have never heard of Wynton Marsalis, right? If we're talking about the whole world. But the people who are like Lance and I, your corner of the world would absolutely melt down at the fact that you were not going to be around anymore, and the fact that I can't get to Vienna and I would never see you again. And that's like the very definition of have something to say and make it something special. I mean, I think you guys just absolutely embody that principle for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. It's pretty cool. It sounds pretty cool here. Yeah, it's great. If you see it that way, then we succeeded in something. Yeah.
What are you working on right now? Like, what are you excited about working on or developing, or what's in the pipeline?
It's been strange times lately, as we all know, and Mnozil is like one of the main victims of this whole thing, because we only played big halls, we only played in foreign countries, and we played like 90 shows a year for the best part of the last 20, 25 years. So now there's nothing, and there's no fast way back. And still, if everybody is vaccinated, I don't know how long it takes till things go back to normal. If they ever will, I can't tell. So, my wife and I, we wrote a movie script for the band, and we are trying to crowdfund enough money to make this movie. We are about to release a crowdfunding trailer. We shot the trailer. That's very funny, and I have no idea if it's going to work, if we are going to get all the money, because movies are expensive and you don't get the money back in. But if people want to see this, they will participate, and I believe in our fans that we will somehow get it together. And I think if we make it, and there's a good chance we will, this is going to be the next step for us to do something new, because everything we are doing, actually, we have done before. We have done everything that is possible with 7 brass instruments in every situation. We tried over and over again to reinvent the wheel, but we can't actually. It's going to be fun to play again if people are allowed back into halls. But I am actually looking forward to do this, because we have been talking about we should make a movie for like 20 years or something, because some people used to call us the Monty Pythons of brass music, which is also not a bad description. But there's a big potential for cinema, for a nice flick, you know. And so I can't tell you anything about it, but it's gonna be like a Mnozil brass version of the Blues Brothers and the Big Lebowski. I think that's the best description. So if we're going to do a movie, it's gonna be a cult classic instantly, at least in this small part of the world you were mentioning before, which is also called the brass community, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, you do have to tell us one thing, which is how, if we want to support it, how do we do that? Is the site up for crowdfunding yet, or is it's
not yet? We're still discussing it, and we have to make room that everybody feels safe and sound. But you will see and find the details on my Facebook account and on the Mnozil Facebook site and the website. It will be out there, and brass people will know. And I don't know when you're airing this, but if it's it should be out by then. So you have a link to.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
And if for some reason it'll be in the show notes, and we will also mention it for you on a future episode.
And if it's not happening at all, then people at this point are just confused, which I like as well. That's fine.
No, we'll just tell them to go look for it.
Just
go find it. You just haven't looked hard enough. It's out there.
Just don't shoot the player.
I played the trailer yesterday evening for a bunch of people, and I really enjoyed the reactions. So it's working. I think it will work. We'll see.
That's awesome.
I can't wait.
I need to take a second to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece. And are you ready for this? The Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece.
What?
Right? Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There's a Mnozil movie potentially happening. Of course there is. I mean, of course there is. But can you imagine, Lance? We got to make this happen.
I'm down. Like anything, if you want to come back on and talk about it, if any way we can help, I'm in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, let's talk about movies, and you talk about mouthpieces. I just have here, right next to me, this.
Look at that.
This is a gift from Maurice Murphy, and this is the mouthpiece he played the last Harry Potter and the last Star Wars movie on before he left the orchestra. So he played Revenge of the Sith and Prisoner of Azkaban on this baby, and I got it.
That's awesome. I got to play with him. There was it's a long story. The shortest possible version is there was a subset of the brass band at Battle Creek called Brass Unlimited, and he was one of the trumpeters for that. And just to get to hang out with him, and he was just so nice. It was just like hang out and have some drinks and just share stories. He was incredibly generous and just played. It's just like, oh, that's how that goes.
I mean, yeah, that's it. The sound when the Superman soundtrack comes on, that's the sound right there. That's it. You know how to lead an orchestra. That's it.
Here's a thing I'm curious about. I think you and I have similar. I think we're drawn to similar artistic things. I don't know if that's true or not, just based on the output that I've seen you do and the things that you've talked about. What catches your imagination right now in the world? Like, what do you see? It could be music, doesn't have to be. Is there an artist or a movie or a show or a comedian or a...
Since we are living in these times, there are so many things that I can't boil it down to one or two. If in music, for example, there's this app called Shazam. I'm sure you know it. Mm-hmm. Since I have this app, since I use it since a few years, whenever I hear something that strikes me, I push Shazam and it goes on a playlist. So now I've got like a playlist that's like 7 hours long of interesting stuff. And the variety is enormously wide. So at the moment, I'm listening to some music of Georg Philipp Telemann from a Baroque ensemble that is playing very, very with great taste and musicality. And it's not playing numbers by numbers. It is really, they play it as if they are dancing, and it's just fantastic. I just can't recall the name right now, but it's yeah. I'm still the sponge, but I don't need to go to the record shop and buy a bunch of CDs anymore. So with that comes the problem that I don't know all the time what I'm listening to actually. But there are so many things that inspire me. It's hard to name one.
Yeah. No, that's a weird question too.
No, it's fine. It's that's what you journalists do.
Yeah, I'm a journalist. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Let's just let that marinate.
You gotta give me a minute.
That's right.
Yeah, trombone player / journalist. Yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
That's right. What do you call a trombone player in a 3-piece suit? The defendant. Okay, so do you have anything? What's on your bucket list besides the movie?
I always wanted to write an opera. And I don't know if I will have the time. The problem is I got so many kids. I don't have time to
How many
do
kids do you have?
I have 4. I got 3 little girls and a boy. But I really like to write an opera one day. The other thing is I'm working on a program for me as a soloist with orchestra but like a show. I don't want to be a soloist, who goes alone to the other side of the world, and then he lives in a hotel room for a couple of days alone, and then he gets one rehearsal slot of 15 minutes, and then he plays. So this is not great. So I want to create a show for myself in orchestra, where I'm like doing everything I do, write some music, play a little, sing a little, talk a little. And have people in classical concerts loosen up.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Good luck with that.
Yeah. No
if anybody can do it, it's you. But that's like I'm looking for.
They're gonna hand out pot.
There you go.
People. Maybe that's a nice idea.
Well, while you're at it, why don't you get world peace and also maybe eradicate all hunger across the globe. So those are probably...
At least I'll eradicate my hunger.
Yeah, I've done a good job of that.
I know. I got bigger and bigger, but not as a star, just as a man.
So what?
No, my
What?
profile. No, I mean like my
On the
shadow.
physical
No,
profile,
not
like
my
Alfred
not my
Hitchcock.
online profile. Yes, exactly.
What what opportunities do you think this pandemic has provided? I mean, there's been heavens, like we could go on and on about the things that are terrible and worse. I personally think that there are options and opportunities that have been presented to do some interesting things that will continue. Do you see places where you go, you know, somebody could really do something with that, or I could really do something with that?
Big question. Because everything that I like about my job has been taken away. It is the communication with the audience. This is the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, everything that I hate about my job has been taken away as well, because I always loved the job, the 2 hours on stage, but the surroundings, the traveling and all of that, I don't need it. I hate it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I do not want to go back to my old existence at all.
Right.
That's one thing. So plus, minus. Another thing is I was never a big fan of people recording themselves and play all the instruments. And now we have a pandemic of that within the pandemic. Because it's like, because I know that Jacob Collier is like a genius, but most of the others are not. And it's like if you record yourself and you play with yourself, I mean, it is like it sounds, you know, you play with yourself. It's like it's a little dirty, and you actually don't want to have everybody watching. So I think it misses the point, because making music is always something you create with others. You do have to communicate, and if you're not able to communicate with yourself that well, then I really hope they will open up halls again and let you play, because all those videos, I don't know, I will not miss them. On the other hand, I did a lot of stream concerts, which are in the beginning are hard, because in the end I try to lay everything in as if I was playing for the audience for real in the room. And in the first couple of shows, when the last tune was over, I fell into a deep hole. It was really depressing, because I need the audience. This is terrible.
It's like now having one half of a conversation.
Yes. But I got used to it now, and the bigger the band, the more fun it is, and it is definitely something that I will still do. I'll use this new knowledge now to send projects out into the world. You know, when I do something and it's like something interesting, I do it like for a week over here. I will try to stream one of the concerts and have people participate around the globe, because that's a nice opportunity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of what I guess where that helps me even think through it, because I think the vast majority of it will go away. I think most of the things have been just sort of stopgaps, but there are interesting ways to integrate, like you just said, you know, if you stream part of what you're doing, it just becomes, it's more. It's not a either or, but it's an added thing. And now, and it also puts more, you're going to play for the 200 or 2,000 people who are in the room, but then how many more people can be in the room, but in a different way, and experience it? And then it informs them, if they get to see you in person at some point, then they come with a different set of experiences than just hearing you on a recording. They got to witness this live thing, and now I get to be in the room and hear the live thing. Yeah.
I also would prefer to produce the videos that people share online on my own than letting them film a concert with their phones and share shitty phone videos that nobody interests, you know. Nobody wants to see. So I'd like the concept to have properly recorded the projects I do, and send little snips and clips of it out. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to segue us into talking about the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where
So
it's cloudy
smooth.
and raining right now.
So smooth.
It's raining like crazy. In fact, I may need an arc. So I want to encourage you to click on the link in the show notes where you will find lots of resources about what's going on at Duquesne University in the Mary Papert School of Music, who's teaching there, what ensembles you can be involved with. And very, very, very special thanks to Jim, modern day Nova, for making that possible. I don't know. I'm not sure what that means.
That was
It was a nice thing. From your arc to Noah, it was fun. Yeah. And by the way, you're not far from Punxsutawney, right?
That's true. Yes, I'm only a couple of hours. Yep.
Yes, because we always drove through Pittsburgh when we played at the University of Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And we always passed.
I saw you guys there.
That street crossing with a sign pointing to Punxsutawney, and it's one of the funniest movies ever made. The Groundhog Day. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always thought of I should go there, but probably there's nothing.
There's not much. It's a quaint little town, and they're very famous one day a year.
Oh yeah.
And the town that's in the movie Groundhog Day is not Punxsutawney. It's actually Woodstock, Illinois. So it's it's a northern suburb of Chicago. I played a gig there when I was in college, and I went, and it was totally surreal because you're like in the town because you see the same things over and over again, obviously in the movie. So you really recognize the place because you see the over. Yeah, and it was felt like being on a movie set. It was very
great.
I only knew one guy from Punxsutawney. I went to college with him. He's a very good trombone player. His name is Phil. Like, why would you do that to your child?
That's if you hate your child before they're born.
So he's younger than the movie?
He's younger than the movie. Yeah.
Oh, poor soul.
Yeah, Phil Tartellone.
Then you call yourself Ned Ryerson.
I don't know if this story is true, but I choose to believe it is because it's hilarious.
If it's good, who cares?
That Charlie Vernon, you're talking about like recording videos with yourself. Charlie Vernon, the great bass trombonist from the Chicago Symphony, this was 20-some years ago. He recorded a quartet album, which was all himself, and he wanted to call it Charlie Vernon Plays with Himself. But the label was like, no, you cannot call it that. So that's pretty funny. Like I said, I don't know. It was like, it was another famous, reputable trombone player who told me, which means it's probably not true. But that's a funny story. So I remember early-ish in the pandemic, there was a Gansch and Roses live stream. I think this was back in May. That was like one of the earliest for me in the pandemic when it was wonderful. You were playing in a courtyard. And you could hear lots of people clapping, and then I think it was after the first tune you saw that it was all the people like up on their their windows.
Yeah, they had the idea of selling because we couldn't play for an audience. So this lady who owns the hotel, she had the idea of doing a concert in her courtyard and selling the hotel rooms as concert seats to couples. So it was funny and inventive.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's still up on YouTube.
Oh yeah, all the concerts are, and on my website you can watch all the concerts without the ads. YouTube is a bad place. If you want to watch music, go to the website. That's best.
Yeah, sure.
I'm looking at it right now. It's like what's it? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 15 either projects, formations, or orchestral projects, which is, I don't know if you're counting at home, but that's a lot.
Oh yeah.
So what's the gestation period, or what's the process? I have an idea for a thing, or there's a person I want to work with. Like what's one of these projects, how's that go through? Is it definitely the time, or?
No, most of the projects, like the first 7, were like things that I used to do regularly, so it was no problem, no big thing to put them together. Then for the Guns N' Roses stuff, you just mentioned that I had to rearrange stuff, write new stuff, and we had to do a big rehearsal day. So it depends on the band, how much work it is. The bigger the band, the more the work. Last time I did not rehearse, and I had my problems then when I was playing. So if you're not taking it seriously, it's gonna come back and haunt you. But I'm doing another one next week, but that's gonna be easy. Well, see, I know so many great musicians, and I love them all, and I love to play with them. So I'm just looking forward. The only problem is it's almost no girls. It's most of the time it's men. So I'm not very diverse in my concert series. I have to change that. I have to think about a women orchestra that I could play with. I don't know. The problem is being a brass player. There used to be not many girls playing brass instrument back in the day. Now there are more, but I don't know them really. So and I'm just looking for people I love to play with, and most of the people I know are men. So sorry, girls. Please send your trumpet playing videos to me, and we'll do a.
There you go. I bet we get some people taking you up on that. That's that's great.
Yeah.
I have a question. Watching that the May performance from Gansch and Roses, I was struck that, how do I put this? When you're playing in like that, it's like not quite a big band, but it's like was that a 7-piece? I think something like that.
I think it was an octet.
Octet. So your sound when you're soloing is huge. It's like it's much bigger, but I mean this in a really good way. Like it's bigger than most players are in like a jazz chamber setting, at least to my perceptions. And it's like, but not in a bad way. You're not bringing an orchestral sound. It's very brilliant and full, and I love it. I can't get enough of it. Where does your concept of sound in either in general or in a setting like that, where does it come from?
It's just, I was always an acoustic player. I never played with mics much. So I always went with Maynard, who said, like, in every room, you have to sound best in the last corner, the corner that's the furthest away. Yeah. So, and that's it, actually. And I grew with the years. There's a funny story. We used to have a premiere of a Mnozil show back in 2003 in a hall in Vienna for 700 people. And at that time, this was the perfect size. It was the perfect hall for us. And we came back to the same hall a few years later, and it was just too small. It felt too small. We had outgrown it. So you develop by doing it. And so I have always tried to trim it down when I play with microphones, because I would always play too loud and too much, and they're also very interesting. Once I worked with Adam Rapper, and we changed our gear just for a moment in the studio, and we both couldn't play anymore like we do, because it's just a different philosophy completely. It is a completely different thing.
Cool. That's a neat tidbit about Maynard. That's really neat. Speaking of gear, you designed your own trumpet. Tell us about that.
Yeah. By coincidence, I have one next to me.
No.
Yeah.
Get out. Say it.
No, it was a joke. Yeah. I get it, and I hold it into the cam for a moment.
Yeah, there you go.
If anybody never has seen it, this is the so-called Gansch horn. Because why did I do it? Because I grew up. I mean, I began playing the trumpet on a cornet, on a Yamaha cornet, which was a Perrine. But very soon, as soon as I played a trumpet, my first trumpet was a rotary valve. So rotary valves have the problem that you have to hold them like that. and the valves are here. So they are really bad if you have to, you know, turn the pages or get a mute or anything. And the other problem is I'm a downstreamer, so whenever you want to sound good, you have to play up above the music stand. You have to bend over. So I asked Carl Schagel, and actually Robert Schagel, who is the creator, that I need a horn like that. And then we drew it, and we shared some ideas, and then we came up with this design, which is fantastic. But because his entry in the thing was, you need to have, you need to be able to hold it like a tool. It is your tool. You are the worker, and this is your tool. And that's the way he did it. So he designed it that I can hold it. It's perfectly balanced in my right hand. And I can play whole shows only with one hand. And on the other hand, I can post about it on Facebook. It is fantastic. And it has all the stuff that I prefer on a rotary horn, plus some extras. Because the bell is bent, that it goes around the valves, which helps me not bending myself, stuff like that. So for me, it is like the perfect solution, and I'm really proud of it, because it became pretty successful. Many people, because always trumpet players, they think if they buy the same horn, they will sound the same.
Right.
That's how we are. That's how we are. Oh yes, it works that way. So buy the horn. No, of course it works not that way. You should always buy the horn that you feel well with, and you should play the mouthpiece that you sound good on. That's it. The sound comes from you, not from the horn. This is still a really fucking cool horn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool looking. I love the bass trumpets too. I just think those are, one of these days I'd love to get my hands on one of those. I just think they're beautiful as well. They just aesthetically look nice as well.
Oh yeah. They are great craftsmen. And they love to invent. So especially Robert, he loves to invent new stuff. So
that's so cool that you have a relationship with them like that, and that.
Yeah, but that's our fathers played together since the 50s. Oh. So we are really, there's a really long bond between the Schagel and the Gansch family.
That was the other thing I was going to ask you about that I forgot, was because we started talking about your brother, that your father was also a trumpet player and a composer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but everything he was self-taught. The thing is, he had to go to the war when he was 17, Second World War. He was far older than me. So he was lucky, and he came up to Norway, where they did nothing except like fishing with grenades. I think that's what he told me. So he never wanted to do all the marching around with the company. So he was complaining all the time to his superior, or how do you call it, his commander or whatever. And he said, I want to make music. I want to make music. I want to make music. So they sent for a trumpet player, a cornet player from the Finnish military band, came up to Tromsø in Norway to teach my father how to play signals on a cornet. That's how he started playing the trumpet. And as soon as he was able to play the signals on the cornet, he didn't have to march around anymore, you know?
Wow.
So he was free. He just got up in the morning, whatever. And the other guys had to march. So, and as soon as he came back from the war, or from the, I don't know if he was imprisoned. My uncle was imprisoned by the Americans, I know. And they just saw him, saxophone, you go and play. So if you were imprisoned by your people, you could play all the time, which was nice, I guess, compared to the Russians. However, my father then, right after the war, they started to play in a band called the Linterpum, and he played all the instruments. He played mostly clarinet, saxophone, and flugelhorn and trumpet. and they would go from parties to parties and earn money in all of Europe. In those times, in the 50s, when everything was built up again, and yeah, I think that was a pretty fun time to be around when they drove to Paris and played weeks, and and so he taught himself how to play, how to read, how to write, and he was completely hooked onto Czech brass music. And this is the thing he gave us. So for me, the greatest sound is the sound of the Czech Central Band, the Central Army Band of Prague. This is a 80-piece wind band, and they have a certain way of playing their very special music that always opens up the heart immediately. And this is the aesthetics that we grew up with. My brother did, and me too. And you should really check them out once. It's a fantastic sound. It's like the Count Basie big band of Oompa music, and they come out of this Czech tradition. So they don't play simple marches. It's always like in the tradition of Smetana and Janacek and Dvořák, and Julius Fučík is like the famous march composer. And it's a very, very rich music.
Wow.
That was his role model. And
He passed that on to you guys.
That's wild.
Oh yeah, he did. He did.
Stationed in Norway. Finnish military guy comes in. Of course, that was his trumpet origin story. Like so many we've already heard. Hey, Lance, why don't you tell us about Houghton Horns?
Andrew, I keep forgetting to tell you that Houghton Horns is a premier brass pro shop with an impressive lineup of the best instruments, accessories, sheet music, and more.
Indeed,
you know what? I also wanted to mention that Houghton Horns stocks the finest makes of brass instruments, including Adams, Bach, Conselmer, Eastman, Shires, Engelbert, Schmidt, Paxman, Thien, and Yamaha, among many ene. Among many ene. They have their own unique Virus brand of products, specially designed by the craftsmen and pro musicians of Houghton Horns.
You broke Gansch.
No. I was thinking of Wolf of Wall Street when the lutes kick in. And when Jordan, what's up? Are you high?
Anyway, they have free in-person virtual equipment consultations with the team of professional musicians and no, if you enter the promo code Junkies11 at online checkout, you will receive $500 off the purchase of a new instrument from HoughtonHorns.com. Very special thanks to Houghton Horns for being a sponsor. And I apologize.
You call them now dollars?
Dollars.
$500.
This is funny.
By the way,
get down
to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Before we hit record,
it's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
We were trading Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonations, and I shared that I'm trying to teach my son every time he sees a helicopter to yell, "Get to the chopper!" So yeah, because that's one of the most. I love Arnold movies. The more ridiculous, the better. Yeah. By the way, the town that we were in at that festival with the breakfast and the was Ohlsdorf.
But that's next. It's next to Gmunden.
Yep.
It's right at the lake. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, indeed.
A very famous Austrian author was living there. Thomas Bernhard.
Huh.
I recommend him.
Cool. There you go. I mean, I've both Lance and I read some of his stuff.
Do you read? Can you read?
Well, clearly, I cannot. You heard me just try and read
tried.
that ad. My ability.
You can't talk, but he can. No, he can't read.
Between us, we're almost literate.
Does he have us muted? You literally just tried and failed spectacularly. And 2 minutes later, he's like, "Have you ever tried to read?" All right. Well,
I can grip a ball.
We are going to. This is
the Derek Zoolander school for
I
for
thought
kids
that,
who don't read good.
I thought that this was going to go off the rails much earlier than it did. We made it until like 5 minutes before the end, which is impressive.
Whoa.
They
That's pretty
so
good.
now that we are off the rails, we are going to go. We're going to sign off here, and then we are going to go a little bit more with Maestro Gansch here for the bonus episode. If you want to get access to the bonus episode and many bonus episode, what's the episodes? Then
Episodas.
you can go to, I don't know how to pluralize words because I dropped out of 2 master's degrees. Stay in school, kids. So you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies and learn how to become a Patreon patron. This was awesome. Thank you so much. This was great. And
Thanks for having me.
Gansch, you were good too. So and that is going to do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies. How about that?
Love that guy. I mean, I'm just like forever been a fan of the band, and then it was just great having Leonard on so many years ago, and now to bring it back around and hear more about their hijinks was just great. And so funny and interesting, and
yeah, he's awesome. My favorite part was when he screamed and he like completely freaked his microphone out, and then it like slowly resuscitated. What a creative force.
Yeah, that's just it. Like it's just nothing. He just seems I was going to say unstoppable, which is not exactly it. He does not seem to hesitate if he's got an idea for a cool project and see people he wants to collaborate with, then just pull the trigger. Let's just go. Let's just make this thing happen.
Yeah,
there's a lesson in there for us all.
If any of you haven't checked out his Gansch at Home series that was early in the pandemic, you should check it out. It's like really, really wonderful stuff. And that was at a time when like nobody was doing that stuff. I mean, it was, it would have been, that would have been an incredible gift to all of us in 2018. But the fact that it happened when none of that kind of stuff was happening, it's really cool to hear him talk about his brother. And the influence that his brother Hans, who's one of the greatest trumpet players in the world, we should actually get him on.
Well, wouldn't it have been weird, like if his brother was a violinist or something, or he was like an accountant, and Thomas didn't have this, like he's already done that. I don't need to go do that. Like I'm not going to be able to go do that, so I can go do my own thing. But if he hadn't had that experience, then would he have taken a more traditional route? Is an interesting question. It is.
Yeah, hearing his kind of some glimpses into his origin story was very interesting. Yeah, what a fascinating and thoughtful person. That's the other thing. It's just it's obvious that with him, with Mnozil, and with each of the iterations of him, there's just a lot of thought that goes into it. Yeah, there's just which is. And maybe he's not, because no artist is for everybody, right? He's not everybody's cup of tea. He's very much your and my cup of tea. Yeah, we eat up everything he's ever done, but I don't know how anybody could say that it's not just really obvious that he has put tons of himself and just tons of thought and care and himself. I think that's the best way to put it into all of his art.
There's a confidence. I mean, I think he gladly knows that he is not everyone's cup of tea. Like, because that means that for the people for whom he is their cup of tea, they're all in. Like, give me more of that tea.
That's a really good way to put it. And I could turn this into an entrepreneurial musician episode quickly right here, just because you have to wow the crap out of your people and don't worry about anybody else. Like, don't even worry about the people who like it but don't love it and try and convince them. You just need to go for the super fans. He's making art for himself largely, but he needs to just keep wowing people like you and me who won't shut up about it, because we're the people that bring all the new people like us, not podcast hosts, just any fans is what I'm saying, are the ones who if there's somebody who I think, how many classes have you played some video of Mnozil for. I mean,
every one.
Yep.
I mean, every iteration of that course, the 2 courses actually, we end up talking about them.
Yep.
So for 6 years now,
because they're remarkable. And the entrepreneurship classes that I have played, the Los Lonely Boys, with the chair coming, I don't even watch the video. It gets to a point where I actually watch the class,
I do too.
and I watch watch students who have they're not brass players, they're like classical pianists, or who are like some who have a legit shot of like doing that, like playing Beethoven in front of orchestras, and you just see them just like their minds get blown by just the storytelling on so many levels. So and that's what all of his art screams at me. So yeah, really cool stuff. Well, all right. Well, there we go. Also wanted to remind everybody that Thursday, May 6th at 8 p.m., Michael Sachs is going to be my guest on Inside the Practice Room. You can go to hitsacademy.com, use the offer code Cleveland to get $10 off. I think it's going to be amazing. And also before that, Jeff Nelson, the horn player for Canadian Brass. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's pretty
short
good.
Guy?
Yeah, real short guy. He's real shy, real soft spoken. He's going to be my guest on April 20th at 8 p.m. And if you use the offer code Canadian, you can get $10 off of that one. Again, hitsacademy.com, and you can get both of those. And we're going to have some events, some Brass Junkies related events coming up as well. So stay tuned for more details there. So, Lance, is there anything else that's on your mind that you want to get off your chest, or are you good?
I'm good.
By the way, the bonus episode, which we should say because we recorded them both back to back, there was some good Mnozil and Boston Brass road antics stories. There were some that like we've been in the same place multiple times with those knuckleheads. And then how the pandemic helped him renew and refresh. The life-changing advice that I got from Scott Hartman at one point, which Tomas was like, that's really good advice. I believe those were his exact words. And then the importance of taking care of your health. So that was all the stuff that we went into in the bonus episode, which you can find out more about at patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. So there.
Take that.
Yep. That's all I got to say about all that. So anyway, congrats to Dave Topping on his victory thanks for everybody who filled out the survey. And we've decided to change absolutely nothing. So we've just decided that you need to
thank you for your feedback. No.
Oh, you didn't think we were going to use that for good, did you? Anyway,
I did this bit here. I'll tell you real quick.
Yeah,
so I had this bit where I can't remember if I ever did it with Boston Brass, but I had this whole announcement. It was like the usual instructions for audiences. And it starts off normal and then goes all askew. I don't know if I got to see if I have a copy of it somewhere. But at one point I said, so if you would like to, if there's anything you don't like in this evening's performance, just look in your program for the survey. And everybody would like open their programs and there's no survey in there. And then once you fill out the survey, you can deposit it in any of the receptacles conveniently located in the lobby.
That's really good.
That wasn't bad. Yeah.
That's really good. You just gave me a flashback. See, I don't think anybody's going to care if we yap too much now, because they can just you
peace out. There's no more interview, right?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Bye.
Yeah. There's no more. Yeah. Whereas like our true fans are going to be I'll listen to these idiots for another 5 minutes. Say like 10 more seconds worth of like material over 5 minutes. But I'm reminded of how many contacts we had. I was like, okay, what kind of an intro would you like? And we would always say, we handle all of it from the mic. Our dream intro is, ladies and gentlemen, Boston Brass. And then how many? And there were a number of people who would do that. They'd be like, are you serious? That's awesome, right? And then other people who would be like, Boston Brass was formed in 1986 as, it was spectacular. And if they read the whole bio, which happened, like it would take, generally the people who would do that would read slowly. There was just a correlation there, and it would take like 2 minutes of being read to poorly.
Yeah.
And it's like, and
the
then
thing
so
that it's in their lap.
Yes,
They could
yes.
read this at their own.
and then by the time we get out there, I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, Boston Bradley crowd be like,
Yeah, exactly.
and that same crowd, if it had been ladies and gentlemen, Boston Brass would be like, yeah. So then we would just have to.
So whenever somebody's introducing me now, like you and I have been doing all these online things, and anybody starts reading my bio, I heckle. I annotate, I add stuff. I say, oh, that's a lie. Or I say, yeah, I quit that band. Yeah, and then I quit. But my other favorite one was like I did ABC, American Band College. I do their summer. Actually, I'm going back. I'm going this summer.
Nice.
After all. So
Nice.
Scott McKee is the kind of grand poobah, and my job is to introduce him every
He's
year.
not kind of the grand poobah. He's the
He's
grand
full
poobah.
on.
It's like a
He's the
capital G,
poobah-ist.
capital P.
So he's like, really talk me up, pump me up. And so I was like, got it. And so I was like, ladies and gentlemen, a man who needs no introduction. And I just turned around and walked off stage. And he's like, what's happening? And then the next year I did like if you were introducing the reincarnation of James Brown and Elvis, I did one like that. You remember when Jens did the testify, the preacher
I
thing?
remember it well.
That was what I got them in a frothy lather and then handed it off. Is that better? Is that what you want?
The key, if you're young, the key to getting rehired for gigs is to make the person who's got all the power, make them constantly terrified that they have no idea what the hell you're about to do. Like, he might stop literally in the middle of a sentence and just walk off, and then I'm on, or it might be 12 minutes. Yeah, you just got to keep them, got to always be on the offense. So, yeah.
And now a podcast that needs no introduction.
That's pretty good. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And I realize I don't have a closer like already, in my brain here. So I just gotta I could just hit Hey, do you remember when there's Sabada, right? There's three syllables that are in the middle of that. But we didn't know if it was Portuguese. We didn't know if it was Portuguese. We didn't know if it was nonsense. We didn't know if it was like a proper noun, whatever. And of course, we thought about this like while Sam Palafian is in the recording booth and Clark Rigsby is like hitting record, and we were like, we don't know how to pronounce that. And these two guys are like, you guys are dumbasses. And then so we tried to let's email Dados like right now in Brazil and see if he just happens to email us back in like 30 seconds. And you're like, nope, I guess it's Sabada. That was it. We decided that it was Sabada. So there you go. So thank you in advance to whoever is going to comment on Apple Podcasts that the outro was too long, even though you could have just hit stop. So, and with that, thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week. Peace.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.